Does anybody, is Francis in this class even?
No, she's
Francis?
not.
No.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Jessica was gonna switch it out with her, so I don't know if Jessica's here tonight, but
Jessica? Does anybody chant kirtan like regularly and with some level of confidence? Wasn't quite sure how to frame that. Uh, does anybody here do kirtan on a regular basis that would care maybe in the future to we could do Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya just a few times to, if somebody has
गोविंद
a harmonium.
वासुदेवाय का नहीं पता बोलो श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी
Let's do the
Aryan can do.
we can do the Narayana Namaskritya because that's how the well that's how the Mahabharata begins. So that's kind of like sort of a classical mantra. And Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya because the Mahabharata what am I talking about? The Bhagavata Purāṇa. I come all over the place. I'm doing all of these different teachings, so I get more befuddled. Okay, anyway, if anybody knows how to play a harmonium with some level of skill, being very diplomatic here, just drop and would like to sort of maybe just 2 or 3 minutes before we start, lead us in a very simple Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya a few times. And I don't know if Narayanam Namaskrityam, there's no reason why that couldn't be put to a harmonium music. So if anybody wants to do that, but sort of regularly, just drop me an email. Because poor old Alice, she doesn't, I mean, all she does is deal with emails from Sanskrit and Bhagavata Purāṇa. Her daughter's like, Mom, what happened to my mom? She's like, she's become captivated by Sanskrit. And okay, Narayanam Namaskritya, Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Daivim Sarasvatim Vyasam, Tato Jayam Udirayat. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminite Namine. Akandamandalakaram Yena Vyaptam Characharam Tat Padam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhur Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priya. Apavitra Pavitrova Sarvavastha Gatopiva Yasmaret Pundarikaksham Sa Bhayabhyantara Shuchi. I think we left off at right 2-4. Did you say, Alice? We did 2-4. We're at chapter 19, right? So let's quickly. Did we do this? Did we start this chapter?
yeah, I think we just started it, maybe the first couple.
Okay, well, just quickly then. So he had this Rajasic moment, and we know that Rajas, is thirsty. So Rajas can be an innocuous thing like thirst. It doesn't have to be some sort of unnecessary desire for some random, frivolous object of the senses. Right? A raga can also be something like food that you're entitled to and dharmically entitled to, right? But if it's still a desire. So he was thirsty. And then when Rajas, in the Gita says this very nicely and succinctly, when Rajas is unfulfilled, it morphs into tamas, it becomes destructive and negative. If you have you can pay attention to your own lives. When you have a strong desire and it doesn't get fulfilled, you get nasty. Or, you get cranky or frustrated or pissy, as they say in the UK. I don't think they say that in the States. Pissy, get pissy. Or maybe Alice reminds me that all of my Englishisms are like half a century out of date because I left England when I was 19 or something. So he had the Rajasic moment which morphed into tamas. And now he's, calmed down, maybe he found a drink, but meanwhile, the king, thinking about the offense that he had done, because the texts are pretty big on not offending Brahmins. If you want to be a Marxist, you probably say something like, who wrote the text? Brahmins. So naturally, they put in all these clauses about. We were talking about one yesterday in the Bhagavad Gita class at Rutgers. Like we were talking about in the text, it says, how do you become a disembodied being at death? Because every culture pretty much known to anthropology believes in kind of disembodied beings. You might call them ghosts or spirits. And the Puranas say, if you die under intoxication, if you commit suicide, bad idea, because you're only killing your body, but the frustration's in the psychic body, in the mind. So if you commit suicide, that psychic body goes with all the frustrations, all of that, whatever drove you to suicide is now still in the psychic body. And now you don't even have a physical body to try to do anything about it. So not a good idea. But anyway, the point is, so the text say 3 people. So it was right. The Brahmins write this, right? 3 people become ghosts: those who commit suicide, those who die under intoxication. And then you could see there's probably an old Brahmin with all these young students, and the Brahmin has an attractive wife, and he adds, and sleeping with the guru's wife. He sticks it on the bottom of the list. The 3 people who become ghosts. So always keep in mind. I mean, we're not Marxists, and we're not particularly, but sometimes these lenses do actually add insight into the text. We can't avoid, we shouldn't just blithely overlook the power dynamics going on in these texts, a particular caste power dynamics and so on and so forth. I mean, I'm teaching in a traditional modality, not in an academic one, but if you was to study this material in an academic context, you'd be paying a lot of attention to, especially in the humanities today, it's all about power, power, power. Right? What are the subtext? What's the subtext? What's the agendas underpinning the construct of whatever it is, social system, or a sentence like this: I performed a despicable deed, as if I were a non-Aryan. Look, therefore it is certain, verse 2, that a terrible calamity will very soon befall me because of the offense I performed against this divine being. So the Brahmins certainly, are writing the text and most definitely putting themselves in a pretty untouchable space. As a matter of fact, in the Dharma Shastras, Brahmins are not, there's no penalty for Brahmins. It's almost like they can do anything they want. So again, we can pay attention to this, even as we don't want to start, Marxist type of interpretation. I say Marxist because Marx, as you know, these are all atheists. People like Freud and Marx and Durkheim, all of these great theoreticians of religion after the Enlightenment, when they're theorizing about what is religion, and they're atheists. So for them, there is no God or soul. And if there's no God or soul, well, why are these? So therefore, any tradition that's presenting itself as like divinely inspired or leading to the soul is nonsense for them. And therefore, they're asking themselves, well, since there isn't a soul and there isn't God, then these are just human constructs. And what causes people to write them? And therefore, they're interested in what's the agendas of the agenda of those people who invent religion, essentially. And so they're very much about power, because Freud was had his weird ideas about incest and the rest of it. But a lot of it's about power, and from that you get the genealogy that goes from Marx to Foucault to pretty much the humanities today, which is much more interested in context and power dynamics than it is in content, in philosophical content. So if anybody's interested in studying this stuff in academia, I suggest they go to a philosophy department and not to a religion department, because religion departments are going to be very much interested in social and context, specifically in the issue of who's writing these texts and what is their real agenda. Okay, I just wanted to throw that out, but let's get back to this. So Some of you are academics, you may or may not agree with that. So therefore it's certain that a terrible calamity will very soon befall me, right? Because he's offended a Brahmana. I performed against this divine being. And remember, the real Brahmana is sa Brahmanam veti, yah Brahmanam veti sa Brahmanaha. The real Brahman, if it's a real Brahman, fine, it's a divine being. Because a real Brahman is one who knows Brahman. But already in the Upanishads, there's this tension between Brahman knowing Brahmanas and caste Brahmanas. There's a lovely story with Shvetaketu's father saying, we're not that kind of a Brahmin that just thinks we're Brahmins because we're of caste. Oh, we are yogis. And already in the old Upanishads, you get this demarcation between a real Brahmana who's supposed to know Brahman and simply a caste Brahmin. And we saw in the story, right? The kid is like, I was calling him a punk Brahmana, and he's a caste Brahmin as opposed to the father. Okay, so this sort of tension, it goes back into the earliest literature. So, since I'm so wretched, verse 3, let the fire of the Brahmanas rage even today. So this idea that the Brahmanas have powers. I mean, even the kid had powers. He could curse. So therefore, what to speak about a real Brahman? And we know that the whole 3rd chapter of Patanjali is all about powers. Mystic powers, and then Patanjali says, well, real yogis are not interested in these powers, only those whose minds are vyuttana, outwardly going. But the real yogi is interested in inwardly going to realize the Atman. No interest. The powers are things you do in the external world. Levitate, walk on water. What's that got to do with the yogis, the real yogis seeking the Atman? But powers are there. And in the first, if you know the Yoga Sutra, chapter 4, which, we don't really get to discuss much, the first verse, Patanjali says there's 5 ways of getting powers. And only one is samadhi, the yogic way, austerity, mantra, herbs. Herbs, they like that on the Lower East Side. Herbs, and I forget the 5th, right? So you can get powers just by tapas. So the Brahmanas are in this text at this age. So this would be, I think this text is, well, I'm not going to get into dating, because then it's just a, one speculation built on another. So yeah, look, Florence is all excited about herbs down there. But at this period of time when this text was written, Brahmanas had powers; they could curse, and certainly that was an offense against a Brahmin would be something to be worried about. So he's worried about it, but he's also a yogi. He's not just worried because he's going to get cursed. Look at the way he's dealing with it. Let this freely occur, this curse, to absolve me of sin. He's taking it. Oh, it's my karma. Fine, great. Let me burn up this karma. He's not like we would be sort of, if you were told you're going to die in 7 days, we'd be desperately clinging for life. That's one of the kleshas of Patanjali, the 5th klesha, abhiniveshaha, clinging to life and desperately, just freaked out. But he's not. A real yogi, yogis embrace their karma. They don't try to change it. Let this freely occur to absolve me of sin, so that I never commit such acts again. So look at his humility. He's the king of the known world. He's the emperor of Hastinapura, the capital of the Kuru of India, of Bharatavash. And look at the way he thinks of himself. Since I'm so wretched, right? This is how a devotee thinks. That they've made an offense against somebody, and they feel, desolate about it. It's very interesting, and I just add something here. It came up in class yesterday. There's no corresponding word for guilt in Sanskrit. If you look it up, it says things like dharma, prayaschita, atonement, but there's nothing corresponding to guilt in a kind of and I think it's so powerful, maybe in Catholicism and Christianity, because of original sin that gets handed down. I don't know. I haven't thought this through from a yogic perspective. And therefore, we're all born with this kind of burden of guilt, the guilt of Adam. And because that idea is so incomprehensible to an Indian way of thinking, how can you receive the karma for something somebody else did? Even accepting that, let's say the story is true, or whether it's metaphorically true or kind of true in some other sort of sense. But the idea that you inherit this sin that somebody else did is incomprehensible. It just breaks all notions of cause and effect and any kind of coherence in the laws of the universe from an Indian way of thinking. So therefore, if you remove this idea of original, and therefore the question is, how much of this sort of Christian, I grew up a Roman Catholic, how much of this stress on guilt is connected to the idea of original sin? Let's just let that dangle for a minute, but there's no equivalent word in Sanskrit that corresponds to, there's ahimsa, you don't want to do violence. So, okay, if you do violence, then obviously, there's regret, there's atonement, all of the things like, apology, but not this kind of inherent idea of feeling guilty. If you do, there's a fear of karma, but that's selfish, fair enough, but there's a fear of karma, and there's things you do like atonement and humility and apology and all of that, but nothing corresponding to guilt. I need to think a little bit more about that, but if anybody has any thoughts, we can maybe, sometimes we can all put our minds together and puzzle about things, connected to our day and age and our moment in time. So anyway, he feels terrible. So now he feels he's wretched. So humility is definitely there. The sense of like, I'm simple, I'm lowly, I did this, but not so much guilt, more like, okay, let me embrace my karma then. I need to take the hit. I did it. Let me take my hit. Let me take the hit. That's how the yogi thinks. Let the fire of the Brahmanas rage even today, he says, consume my kingdom, strength, wealth, treasury, such that I never again harbor a sinful attitude, right? Which he put the snake around the neck of the yogi, Brahmana. But look what it says. I never again harbor a sinful attitude towards the twice-born Brahmanas, gods, or cows. These are the most elevated beings in samsara. So the Brahmanas are right there at the top of the list. Having said that, my friends, there are statements in the Puranas that there are no Brahmins in Kali Yuga. There are no true Brahmins. So none of that stuff even applies in the Kali Yuga. But certainly this is right at the tail end of the previous Yuga, so there would be the spillover of this attitude towards Brahmanas and cows, and the Devas, right, who received the Vedic sacrifice, the gods. As he was thinking in this manner, the king heard about his impending doom, right, 7 days, looming in the form of the snake bird, who was called Tataksha, so it's kind of a creature that the young boy unleashed. Remember that the curse is always connected to the offense, or usually has some connection to the offense, so he put a dead snake around the Brahman's neck. So now his death is going to come in the form of a snake, but a flying snake, a creature called Tataksha. So, and look at this. Right, the Tataksha, invoked by the son of the sage. He considered this to be fitting. This is how when a yogi gets hit by bad karma, he doesn't start whining and crying and, oh, woe is me. And he says, well, it's my karma. Let me embrace it. Let me burn this up. It's a much better way of dealing with, because it makes you feel empowered. It's like, I did it, and now I'm getting the hit. Let me rectify myself for the future. That's empowering, that kind of an attitude, rather than saying, well, why does this happen to me? I'm such a good person, right? Why am I suffering in this way? Which is pathetic and useless and doesn't change anything. But if you say, okay, I did the deed, this life or a past life, I'm getting the hit, it's appropriate, it's just, I'm responsible, it's not some random whimsical universe, and let me take that hit and let me adjust my attitude for the future. And it's exactly what the king is doing here. So So he says exactly, adjust his attitude. May I take, right, let the fire of the Brahmanas rage even today, consume everything, right, such that I never again, he wants to adjust his attitude. He wants to take the hit, pay the price, such that I never again harbor a simple attitude towards these, the Brahmanas, gods or cows. Notice the cows, everybody. The cows. We've forgotten about the cows now, but there are cows that are still revered in India. We've spoken about this, but have been displaced. They no longer have a function. The bulls have been replaced by the tractor, and India, the urban centers are so bereft of, cows are left to wander. They're not killed because of this leftover culture. They're still not killed. I bet they'll start killing them with maybe even within our lifetime. In Bengal, they do. Certain states, it's already legal, or it was. I don't know about the BJP but it was before the BJP. But anyway, so they just wander the streets, and it's really quite sad because there's no food, and they eat garbage and plastic bags and. But anyway, the cows are up there, the Brahmanas, the celestials, and the cows. As he was thinking, right, so the king heard about his impending doom, looming in the form of the snake bird Tatakshaka, which was invoked by the son of the sage, right? He had this ability to have a mystic power that he invoked by means of mantra, which is one of the ways mystic powers can be harnessed in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, chapter 4, verse 1. One of them is mantra. Right. He considered this to be fitting, did the king. Look at this. He was attached to worldly life. He thinks, well, this is good. Now I can become detached. I've only got 7 days to live. So great. This is a blessing. I've got, I have my beautiful wife and family and palace. I'm attached to it all. This is going to help me out yogically. He was attached to worldly life, and the fire of Takshaka would soon be the means of his detachment. He recognizes, as all yogis do, they think everything is actually helpful to their yogic journey. There is no such thing as a bad thing. A bad thing is something that simply makes you, adjust your way of thinking, or burn up karma, or teach you a lesson. But everything is beneficial for your yogic path if you apply that lens to it, as did Parikshit here. So, Parikshit gave up any desire for this world and the celestial one. Remember, the world of the celestials. And he had anyway long determined that they should be renounced. Isn't it? I mean, many of us feel like we should renounce, but when it comes to it, we drag our feet. And unfortunately, we drag our feet till the moment of death, and then it's too late. But he's blessed because he knows 7 days. He can't let his mind play games. Our minds play game. Oh, later, I'll renounce later. I'll give it all up later. Well, right now I've got my family. I got this. I got my dogs and my pets. I have to feed the cat. Oh, I can't renounce now. Oh, it's always later. That's just even sincere yogis. But then, of course, next thing we know, we're dying. And then where's the later after that? It's too late. So he goes, anyway, he had long determined they should be renounced, considering service to the lotus feet of Krishna to be superior. So service is how we develop our love for God, right? This word love of God we brandish about rather loosely and a little carelessly. Actually, love in the Indian system is service. If you love someone, you want to please them, and therefore you do things to please them. And doing things to please someone is service. So therefore, love is service. That's how you serve. And so therefore, what is Bhakti Yoga? We serve, right? We follow the paths of the traditions that lay out how do you serve God. So that we do pujas, we do mantras, we do these things that the sacred texts suggest are pleasing to Bhagavan. And so we do them as service, in that attitude of service, and then eventually, if we can win the grace of Bhagavan, then actual love manifests. Love doesn't come from within the heart; it comes from outside. Keep that in mind. The only thing that that comes in the mind has to already be in the mind in the form of sanskara. Anything that's in your mind came into the mind through the senses. So something can't be in the mind unless it got into the mind from outside. And so therefore love of God is not in the mind because it isn't in the mind. It comes from beyond the mind in terms of relationship with God. So that is actually a gift of God that comes from the outside. It's not something that we manifest. It's not that practice manifests love that's innate in the heart. No, not like that. Nothing is in the heart meaning mind. So the only thing that can pop out of the mind is something's already got in there. There's no magic. Things don't come from nothing. So therefore, love doesn't just magically manifest. It's got to come in like anything else. Like you like Ben and Jerry toffee ice cream. Well, why do you like it? Because there must have been the first time it came in from the outside, touched your tongue, it generated a sensation of taste, and then gets imprinted as a memory. That's come from the outside. Your like of Ben and Jerry toffee ice cream. The love of God is no different. It's got to come from the outside. How's it going to come from the outside? Love of God. It's only God. God can give you love of God. Who else is going to give you love of God? So therefore, bhakti is about trying to attain the attention of, somehow by our little acts of service are about trying to earn or win is a better word, the affection of Bhagavan. It's no different than if you're, I don't know, mundane world. You're dating someone. Don't you do stuff? For the first month, and then it's like, okay, well, enough of that. So it's no different from from mundane relationships. Now, so he then sat down to fast to death on the bank of the Ganga river. It's got 7 days. He knows exact timeline. He doesn't want anything to interfere with. He's going to ask, what do I do with my mind now? So he doesn't want any distraction. So no eating, no sleeping. It's for real. 7 days. It's for real. It's not theoretical. For us, it's theoretical. We know in theory we're going to die. So because it's only theoretical, we don't take it very seriously. This is what Abhiniveshaha is, by the way. Those of you that know Patanjali, the fifth glacier is clinging to life. What is it? What is it actually? Yudhisthira Maharaj in the Mahabharata captures it perfectly. He says he had to answer 100 questions, blah blah blah. And the last question got them all right. Last question: what's the most amazing thing in the world? And Yudhisthira goes, most amazing thing in the world is that even though we see death everywhere, our parents have died, or historically everyone has died, everyone is neighbors, people dying all around us. Yet the most amazing thing in the world is we don't believe that we are going to die. Not today. Theoretically, we know, but we don't think we're going to die today. That's Abhiniveshaha, is a form of clinging to life, the fifth klesha, which is Abhiniveshaha, clinging to life, fear of death, and this idea that, okay, it's not going to be today. I still have a little time. That is a klesha. So Parikshit was not able to play that game. His mind was not able to play that game with him. 7 days, precise, to the minute. So that was a great blessing. Anybody else would be freaked out, like, oh my God, I got 7 days. He was like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Now I know for sure when I'm going to die. So he's fasting to death, right? Look at this. What person who is about to die would not worship the Ganga? She brings water made divine from the dust of the feet of Krishna, mixed with the beautiful tulsi plant. She purifies both worlds, earthly and celestial, along with their celestial Lord. So the reason that the Ganga is considered sacred in Indian traditions, I've been going around chastising people for using the word mythology, including most recently the Vedanta Center. According to the story, there's an incarnation of Vishnu, and the story, it's a beautiful story, where Vamana Dev is an incarnation of Vishnu, takes the form of a little, hang on, I'm mixing up stories. So anyway, this incarnation of Vishnu takes 3 steps, and one step he traverses the whole, okay, it's Bali Maharaj is the king of the demons. But sometimes you could be a demon, the king of a demon, and still be a bhakta. Bhakti's got nothing to do whether you're demoniac or anything. So he's the king of the demons. That was his karma. He was born into that jati, into that birth, into the royal family of the demons. So he was a demon, but in his heart he was a devotee of Vishnu. So he's like doing what demon asuras do. They're like, English football hooligans. They just create, they just create trouble. So Vamana comes down, incarnation of Vishnu, and because he's a Brahmana, then Bali, who is a king of the demons, he's still respectful of Vedic culture. So he says, "Oh, you're a Brahmin. I'll give you what you want." And so Vamana says, "Oh, I don't want anything. Oh, come on. I'm the lord of the universe. What do you want? Oh, I want 3 steps of land." Says the little Brahmin, because the demon is insisting. So then, and the king goes, "Is that all? I can give you anything you want." Yeah, it's just 3 steps of land. So then, I'm getting the story a bit wrong, but it doesn't matter. So how does the Vamana morph into Trivikrama? I can't remember. I'm mixing 2 stories up. But then one step of land, he covers the whole world. The second step of land, he covers the whole universe, and connected to the Ganga verse we just read, his big toe pokes through the coverings of the universe, and the celestial water pours into the universe, bounces on floods into the celestial realm, comes down to this earth. But it's so powerful. You've seen, if you look at a deity of Shiva, you'll see water on his head. Look at the statue of Shiva when he's sitting. You might see kind of this water imagery on his head. But he has to break the fall of the Ganga. Otherwise, it will shatter the earth. So he bears it on his head, and then it flows down to into the earth. And that's why the Ganga, this verse just said, right? The verse just said that the Ganga she brings water made divine from the dust of the feet of Krishna, because in this incarnation, the Ganga touched the big toe of Trivikrama. Trivikrama means 3 steps, the incarnation of Tri, Krama, Kram, steps. So that's why the Ganga is sacred, to touch the feet of Vishnu. So that was the second step. And then the third step, and then he says, then the little boy says, "Well, you promised me, you got to keep your word now. You're an honorable warrior, king. You might be king of the asuras, the demons, but back then you give your word. It was your word. Where he says, but I've covered the universe. Where's your third step you promised me?" And so the great king of the asuras, he sort of bows his head and he says, "Put your third step on my head." And that was his devotion, surrender to Vishnu. It's a very beautiful story. And it's Trivikrama. So, who would not worship the Ganga with a story like that? She brings water made divine from the dust of the feet of Krishna, mixed with a beautiful tulsi palm, because wherever there's Krishna, he always wears a garland of tulsi. If you're a Krishna bhakta, certain things are Ishvara specific. So if you're worshipping Vishnu or Krishna, you always have to put tulsi on every food item that you worship. And they wear tulsi garlands. So we have our altar over there, but if you don't have tulsi, as my friend's house, if you don't have tulsi, then the texts, Hindu texts they're very liberal. They always say things. Okay, for tulsi, fresh tulsi. Okay, you don't have that. All right, dried tulsi. Okay, you don't have dried tulsi. Well, touch the food with a tulsi stick. Oh God, all right, don't even have a tulsi stick. Fine, mental. And they always end up mental. Do it with your mind. So it's very gracious and liberal. There's no one is denied bhakti on any level whatsoever. If you don't even have the ingredients for your puja, you just do it mentally. It's all about sincerity and of the heart, bhakti. Unlike Vedic ritualism, you get one phoneme wrong, one phoneme in your mantra, sacrifice is you start all over. And Patanjali, right? You Chittavriti Nirodha, one thought, but you're not no near bija samadhi for you. So these other traditions, you have to be 100% precise. Not bhakti. You don't have Tulsi, okay, offer it in your mind. It's all about love, my friends. That's bhakti. It's a very different category of thing. So, on we go. So, having thus resolved, right, verse 7. So Ganga, right, purifies both worlds because she also, comes from outside the universe. So then she first flows into the celestial realms, right? The both worlds mean the celestial and the terrestrial. Here we are, earthly and celestial. Along with okay. So having made this resolve to sit on the banks of the Ganga, to fast unto death, right? Parikshit, the descendant of the Pandavas, the 5 Pandavas, sons of Bandhu, firm in the vows of a sage. Now he's stopped being a king, and he's now doing this tapas. So now he's in the realm of the yogis. The yogis renounce the world. 2 types of yogis, Krishna says in the Gita. And, there's those who renounce the world. And then Krishna says, but there's this karma yoga, this other kind of yoga, but it got lost. And, it was the beginning. I gave these 2 yogas and they came down, but one got lost. Yoga nashta parantapa. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sa kalena ha mahata. After a great period of time, yoga nashta parantapa got lost. So then Krishna comes in the Gita and he says, I'm reestablishing the lost yoga, right, which is karma yoga, which act in the world but don't be attached. And he chooses Arjuna as his recipient, and then this karma yoga then floods into the world through the Gita. But before the Gita, because the karma yoga had been lost, the other yoga was the inactive yoga, which is Patanjalian. That's not social yoga, right? We just saw what happened when the sage Shamika was in his little hut, and Parikshit came in looking for water. He didn't even hear him. So that's the inaction yoga, taken to its actual grand finale. You're in near bija samadhi. You're not aware of anything. Your senses are closed down. Forget about working in the world. You're not even aware of someone tapping you on the shoulder. So therefore he's now firm in the vows of a sage, not in the vows of the king. He's renounced that now. He gave up his kingdom. The vows of the king is different. The vows of the king is all about dharma, 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 dharma. What's dharma? What's dharma? Are the citizens performing their dharma? Let me make sure everything is, the merchants are not cheating, and the brahmanas are doing their rituals. So the vows of a king are more like karma yoga kind of vows. But the vows of a sage, remember, 2 paths, action, inaction. Gita doesn't talk about 4 paths, jnana yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga. That's Vivekananda in the 19th century. Gita talks about 2 paths, the action and inaction. So now he's going to be a sage. He's taken off he took off all his royal stuff. He's sitting in a sage-like with a loincloth. So, firm in the vows of a sage, free from all attachments, concentrated on the feet of Mukunda, not on the Atman. Bhaktas don't focus on the Atman. They're not doing Atman yoga. They pick up Atman up on the way. It's like I keep saying, it's like picking up an MPhil on the way to your PhD. It's kind of insignificant compared to the PhD. So, and now he's fixing on the Mukunda, another name for Krishna, with undivided attention. So now it's a big event. He's the grand nephew of Krishna. So at this, the great realized sages who purify the worlds, by the way. And how do they purify the worlds? It's because they're always talking about Bhagavan. And in those narratives and discussions, because wherever God is present, God is all pure, by definition. So wherever God is present, there can only be purity. And therefore, where the great bhaktas congregate to talk about, read the Bhagavatam together, talk about Bhagavan, then they bring purity with them. So that's how that's understood. There's even a verse in the Bhagavatam: the holy places are not holy because some river flows through them. It says that. We just read about how the Ganga is purifying. So that's one point being made, but sometimes, texts seem to contradict itself because different points are being made. But later on, it's going to say, actually, the holy place isn't holy place because all the holy places are in India, by the way, are on holy rivers. But the Bhagavatam says it's not because of the holy rivers, it's because the great sages go there. And it's the great saints that make a holy place holy. So different things stated in different places. So the great realized sages who can purify the worlds, if you really meet a pure bhakta, can touch your heart, that's it. Your samsara is finished. Once you have that, it's called the bhakti lata bija, the seed of bhakti coming from a real lover of God, and it enters your heart, that's it. It might take you a lifetime or two, but that's it. That seed will grow and grow and grow. You might sort of fall off the path or whatever, but there's no going back once you have the seed. Might take because that seed is different from any other seed. It's Bhagavan. So that seed of bhakti will grow. You have free will, you have agency, so you can just be an idiot for a lifetime or two and kind of like not pay full attention to it. But there's no going back once you have the seed of bhakti. So at this, the great realized sages who can purify the world. Okay, hang on. Yeah, arrive there along with their disciples. All right, they all got dreadlocks. They're wearing different kinds of sacred clay. Maybe some of them are Shaivas. They come with it, a bit like a Kumbh Mela, really. The saints, look at this. This is what I was just saying. I didn't realize it's coming up next verse. Under the pretext of performing pilgrimage, actually themselves purify a pilgrimage place. So really, 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 if you actually become 100% Jivan Mukta or a lover of God, you have two options. Either you just sit in a cave and just try and remain in your meditation until this body drops off, or you go into the world and try to plant seeds of devotion to others. In which case you pretend, you knock on the door and you pretend to be begging for milk. It says that. But really, you're giving the householder a chance to say, "Oh, Maharaj, aiye, aiye, padhariye, padhariye, aiye," and you offer you something, and invite, and then you give the householder a chance to invite you in and ask some real questions about real things. Maharaj, how do I get bhakti? And one thing I found with my own teacher was an amazing scholar. He was, he had the first printing press in Vrindavan. He published, he set out to preserve the literatures, right, with the advent of the British and the printing press, and he was known for that. He was a Baba, complete Baba, but actually, what happened was he left home at 7 and just walked to Vrindavan. It was kind of a fairly common story for that kind of an amazing being. And when he was in, I don't know, middle age or early old, when he was at a certain point, his sister came and said, the parents were immensely wealthy Bengal Thakurs, landowners. And the sister said, "Oh, you've inherited all this money. He was a Baba living under the tree." And of course, he could easily have just renounced it. He spent 50 years in extreme renunciation, but he took the funds and he built the Goshala. You've always heard me talking about the Goshala. He built this beautiful Goshala and he bought printing press. And rather than renouncing it, he used the resources, the printing press, to print books on the Krishna devotion. And we just read about the three things, right? The Brahmanas, the celestials, and the cow. So he's in that generation of Brahmins that the scriptures, their world. They live that world. So, and especially in the Krishna tradition, I mean, in general, cows are worshipable, but all the more so in the Krishna tradition because of Govinda. Go means a cow. Govinda, Gopala, Gopinatha. Half of the names of Krishna have a go stuck in there. So Krishna, so it's all the more enhanced. So he built this Goshala. And I was going somewhere else with that. And it'll come to me in a minute. So what was I going to go? All right.
Why your guru was a great scholar.
No, but I had something else at the back. I was going somewhere else with the story. It'll come to me. Right. So okay. So all they hear are the great sages, and notice how they mix up all the sages known to Indian tradition. Atri, these are the sages. Atri, Vasishta, right? If you've read the Vasishta Ramayana, Chavana, Sharadvan, Arishtanemi, Bhrigu, right? Bhrigu is always a bit of a fierce Brahmin. Angira Muni, he's the astrologer Angira. Parashuram, right? The warrior incarnation. Rama, even Rama's in there. Uttatya, Indra, right? What else have we got that you might recognize? Gautama, right? I don't know if that's the Buddha, probably not. Maitreya, blah, 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 blah. Vyas, and the great Nara. So all of the great sages known to the epic traditions of India, they all show up there. It's an event. Like I don't know, Burning Man in California. It gets to be an event. So all of the people that are associated with that particular culture, they go to Burning. So this was an event. The grandnephew of Krishna is going to fast to death. So that's an event. The emperor of the known world is going to. Can you imagine if the president of the United States decides to become a yogi and sits on the banks of the Hudson River and does that? It would be a huge event, wouldn't it? Imagine in the yoga world, it'd be like he'd be all over Yoga Journal and God knows what. So this was an event. I don't know about Yoga Journal, but anyway, let's go. Right. So, and other great sages, eminent Brahmanas arrived also, as well as prominent kings like Aruna. The king honored the eminent sages from various lineages that had gathered there and paid obeisances by bowing his head to their feet. Okay, so if you want to do dandavat, what dandavat means thank you, but really it means danda. But like a stick, you go right, you do full obeisances. If you want to really go overboard with honoring, the deity in a temple, you do full dandavat, and also to honorable people. So he did that, right, bowing his head, right. Now when they were seated comfortably, and he, Parikshit, had once again offered homage to them, right, namaha, namo, and all the namahas, the king stood before them with hands folded in supplication, his mind completely detached from worldly affairs, and he informed them of his intentions. And he starts off with these words of humility. Aho! Remember, this is not aho. It's not an Irishman on a 19th century wooden boat, seeing land in the distance. Ahoy! Land ahoy! But it is an expression in aho is very common. Bo and aho. Bo is kind of like, some marvelous thing, like wow. And aho is kind of similar. These are exclamations. So aho! And he puts himself down because of his caste as a warrior. Remember that warriors they can hunt, they kill, they have to they have to cultivate the Rajaguna. If you're going to be a warrior, you can't be sattvic. You got to be martially trained and fearless. You got to cultivate. You got to throw yourself into the thick of battle. Can't be doing that in the Sattva-guna. So therefore, the Brahmins are supposed to be sattvic in this ideal system, and the warriors are meant to be rajas. Rajas is just energy, my friends. It's neither good nor bad. It depends on whether sattva is pushing it or tamas is pushing it. So in the social order of ancient India, the warriors are rajas, but they're pushed by the Brahmin. It's in this ideal system, which breaks down in the Kali Yuga completely. But in this sort of idealized, just like we have idealized, notions of democracy and free press and all of that and justice, and of course it all breaks down. But back then it would be the Brahmins are supposed to be sattvic and no Brahman, and they're the sattvic, and they're the ones that then push the energy of the warriors into a sattvic direction that's benevolent for human existence, and this is a civic order. But if Tamas gets into that controlling position, then of course it's a whole other story. But anyway, so he's Rajasic, and he goes, look, the dynasty of kings is actually contemptible and look at this, his humility, deserves to be discarded far from the place where the water used for washing the feet of the Brahmanas is found, right? So he's not just saying, oh, I should, because the feet, you all this business about feet, touch the feet, right? The idea is the feet is the lowest part of a person because they come into contact with the street. So the feet are dirty. So when you touch a person's feet, when you do this, and or if you do the full dandavat, you do it at the feet of the person, meaning my top part of me touches the lowest part of you. That's an act of humility and surrender. He's not even saying that. He's saying when the Brahmins wash their feet and take the dirty water and throw it somewhere else, I'm not even fit to put my head to the place where that water is thrown. So he's over the top kind of humility here. But that's what he's saying. Look, I'll read it again. It deserves to be discarded far from the place where the water used for washing the feet of the Brahmanas is found. He's not even thinking he should be touching the feet of the Brahmana with his head. He's too lowly for that in his mind, not even the water. Anyway, but nonetheless, because of this, we kings are actually the most fortunate among men, since this character of ours, this lowly character of ours, makes us eligible for the compassion of magnanimous souls. So in other words, he's saying, okay, we're so lowly, but a real, genuine saint who's above casteism, Brahman, a warrior, who sees equality in all beings, because we're so lowly and because the great beings are so compassionate, we actually qualify for their grace by dint of our lowliness. It's kind of a cool thing to say. So now he flips the narrative a little bit and says, nonetheless, we're actually the most fortunate because this character of ours, which one? This contemptible character, makes us eligible for compassion. I'm a sinful member of such a dynasty. I mean, this is the Kuru dynasty. This is Krishna's dynasty. How, I don't know. You could, he's maybe taking it a step too far, because the whole dynasty elsewhere, it says it becomes pure just because Krishna takes birth in it. But anyway, look, this is just a narrative. Let's keep going. I'm a sinful member of the dynasty. My mind is always attached to household affairs. He says, like us, the Supreme Lord of all has manifested, look at this, in the form of the Brahmana's curse. He sees it as Krishna himself has come to help him break his attachments. And Krishna has arranged this whole thing and taken the form of the curse in order to help him break his attachment. That's how he's reading this curse. Rather than being freaked out, he's only got 7 days left to live. This is the thinking of a yogi, my friend. My friends, this is the thinking of a bhakta. It's how a bhakta's mind works. So he's seeing it this way. Right, the Krishna's come, and in this manner has become the trigger for my detachment from worldly affairs. He knows that if he dies attached, he's just going to come back. So anything that breaks the attachment is a great boon. And that's how he sees it. Because of such a curse, people who are attached to worldly affairs would normally be immediately thrown into a state of fear. If you or I were told we had 7 days left to live, we'd be freaked out. So this is the difference between that, because we think we're body-mind. We're in ignorance. And so therefore, oh, my body, how am I, 7 days and then what? But that's not the thinking of a yogi. Yogi sees it all as a blessing, right? May the sages, Mother Ganga, accept me as someone who has turned to the Lord and whose mind is fixed on him. Right? Let me be, from now on, I'm not the king of the known world anymore. I'm just a bhakta of Krishna. Let Tataksha, the snake bird, or whatever magical thing was disturbed by the Brahmana, let it bite me as is fitting. Let me embrace this. It's my great good fortune. But now now I have to wake up to the real. And may you all please sing the glories of Vishnu. May everybody chant kirtan. May fellowship with those who have taken shelter of the unlimited Lord, as well as affection for them, be bestowed upon me, in whatever be the next birth I may obtain in the material world. So this is the thinking of a bhakta. Okay, I messed up. I'm going to have to be reborn if there is one request I can make, let me be reborn in a place where there are devotees of Bhagavan that can rekindle my devotion in the next life. That will give me their association. That's the prayer of the bhaktas. They never think I'm going to be liberated. No bhakta ever would think he's going to be liberated. Anyone saying that is not being humble, actually. You assume, of course I'm going to take birth again. Of course I'm not going to, I'm such a nonsense. My mind is full of desires. My japa is pathetic. All right? Of course you never for a minute think you're going to, become a pure lover of God in this lifetime. That would be absolutely, that's just not the thinking of a bhakta. So you assume, of course, I'm going to get reborn, but if there's any way I can make a request, it would simply be this: I want to pick up again next life, and finish, continue the journey. So I have to pick up again. I need the association of those who. What's going to waken up my samskaras from this life in my next life? How are they going to reignite the association of bhaktas? So you pray to be born in the association of lovers of God in your next life, so that they can then trigger your whatever you did in this life, whatever steps you took, and then you can keep going. So that's your only request. Let me be born. Let me be born in the association of bhakta, in the sangha of the bhaktas, right here. May fellowship with those, fellowship, which the Sanskrit is sangha, with those who have taken shelter of the unlimited Lord. These are bhaktas. They take shelter of God. They don't rely on their own yogic virtuosity. It's complete surrender. That's the path of bhakti. As well as affection for them. Be bestowed upon me in whatever be the next birth I may obtain in this material world. That's his only wish. And may I be a friend to all. Remember the Gita, see all beings equally. That's such a beautiful, beautiful, it's a beautiful stage, a beautiful vision to wish for. This is aklishta desire. There's klishta and aklishta desires. Not all desires are bad. Klishta desires, body, mind, take us away from yoga. Patanjali says, Britaya panchataya, klishta aklishta. Not all, the Brittis are klishta or aklishta. Are thinking, these kleshas. They can be kleshas and non-kleshas. They are things which take us towards yoga. So therefore, desires which are connected to the Atman and Bhakti, they're good desires. So don't think all desires are bad. Klishta desires are bad, but there's aklishta. What's the opposite of klishta? Aklishta. Why? No, people don't pay enough attention to verse 5 in the Yoga Sutra. There's not enough attention, not even the commentaries. They don't even make the connection between klishta and aklishta and the kleshas of chapter 2. Obviously, it's the same word. Klesha is a noun, klishta, aklishta. Alice is what? From klish. What's klishta? PPP. Past passive participle. It's the past passive participle, right? So the klesha are the things, and you are the klishta or aklishta, depending on when you do kleshas, or the opposite. What's the opposite of vidya? Avidya. The klesha is avidya. 5 kleshas: avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Right? Those are the kleshas. But what are the akleshas that give aklishta vrittis? Well, what's the opposite of avidya? Vidya, knowledge. What's the opposite of asmita? Brahmasmi, I'm Brahman. What's the opposite of raga? Vairagya, and raga for Bhagavan. You have to have raga for Bhagavan, raga for the Atman, otherwise we wouldn't do yoga. And so forth. These things have their opposites, which are aklishta, and including attraction. But that attraction has to be in bhakti, only for Bhagavan. So he says, may I be a friend to all. That's a desire. That's a raga. Well, what kind of a raga is that then? To be a friend to all. It's not a klishta desire, is it? Because it's an aklishta desire. To see the Atman in all beings is the way the Gita frames it. That's aklishta. It's got nothing to do with body, mind, selfishness.
Professor, you've been recording for an hour, just so you know.
Thank you, Alice. You got me off that little rant. All right, now, And may I be, and I offer homage to the Brahmanas. Notice the Brahmanas always stick this in at the end. I do become a Marxist a little bit when I read things like that. They stick it at the end. Oh, and by the way, make sure you offer namaha to the Brahmins, writes the Brahmin. Okay. The king, who had handed over his responsibilities to his son, was determined and resolved in mind. On the southern side of the Ganga, facing north, and I often see these references to sitting on the southern side of the river, and I've never found an explanation of the associations of the southern side. Obviously, it's auspicious, but exactly what there must be some ancient tradition of south. I don't know what the story is connecting with southern side of a river with auspiciousness, but it's always mentioned the southern side of the river. So I can't explain that. But if anybody runs into anything, not some speculation. Remember that we're doing a traditional svadhyaya. When you do a traditional svadhyaya, you don't just pull something out of your mind. You go find a scriptural reference. That's how Vedantins operate. When you're in the realm of Vedanta, and the Puranas is an extension of Vedanta, and somebody asks you, and there's a question arises from the text, like, okay, there's a contradiction or something. Okay, how do we explain this? You don't just pull something out your head. You don't do that in Vedanta. You find a scriptural reference, and then you present it and say, well, in the Vishnu Purana it says this. So just so you know, when we do our svadhyaya together, that is going to be our modus operandus. That if you have something to contribute or an explanation, and we run into a question, you got to find a scriptural reference. We're not interested in new agey, new agey hodgepodge, okay, ommy-wommy kind of. We're interested in that it's going to be written in Sanskrit. Otherwise, we're not going to pay attention to it. We offer on namaha from a distance, but we're not going to take it seriously. All right, sorry. Then let's keep going. Now, so southern side of the Ganga, facing north, he sat down on kusha grass. Again, this is this elephant grass, and it goes way back to the Rig Veda, the old Veda. When you do your Vedic sacrifice, you sit on kusha grass. Again, I've never found it, a serious kind of explanation of what is it about kusha grass that's so auspicious. Because they all, they have mundane, but kind of mundane, does it keep the bugs off? I don't know. I don't know why kusha grass is from the earliest period. You're doing your Vedic ritual way back, way before all the Puranas, way back into Indo-European times, Vedic times. You're sitting on kusha grass. Don't know why, but keep your eyes open. Anybody runs into a reference in the scripture. Okay. Not in crystal balls. We all want crystal balls. We're looking at the Sanskrit text for our answers. Okay, sorry, I'm being facetious. Right, now. Okay, when the King of Kings, right, he's emperor of the known world, all of this sat down on kusha grass with its roots facing east. That all goes back to the earliest Vedic kind of requirements for Vedic ritualism. It has to be meticulous. If you want the Vedic ritual to work, my friends, it has to be, everything is absolutely precise. You make one mistake, the sacrifice doesn't work. So and there's a whole genre of texts called the Brahmanas that barely, they're translated, but nobody reads them. There's the Vedas, the Brahmanas. Brahmanas are the caste, but they're also a genre of text, and they're all the details about how to perform Vedic sacrifice. And they're very, very precise in terms of the things that has to be done. For example, you have to sit on kusha grass with its roots facing east. You can't be facing south. It won't work. The sacrifice won't work on that kind of level. So when the King of Kings was seated on that seat, by the way, and that's what asana is. Hello? Asana, a seat. Did everybody get that? Asana is a seat. That's what it means. You have to sit down to meditate. So therefore you might do your stretches, but only so that you can sit down without fidgeting. So here's my good friend Brahma Muhurta. Brahma, oops. You're saying hi to the great yogis and yoginis who are interested in Bhagavata Purāṇa.
Hi.
I'm up here at Brahma's, helping him fix up his cellar and to make it a Airbnb. So, banging in 2x4s. I'm breaking my thumb. Yeah. So, he's awaiting death, right? He's awaiting death, seated on that seat. The hosts of celestial beings in the heavens joyfully praised him, showered flowers on the earth, and played kettle drums continuously. Okay, I'm just going to tell you what the traditions say, okay? It's none of my business whether you believe it, don't believe it. I'm going to teach the text to the best of my ability according to what the texts are saying about themselves. In this tradition, in the previous ages, the celestials would participate personally at the Vedic sacrifice. They would be sitting around the Vedic, and they would participate in the celestials. And, this idea of this sort of, even the Greco-Roman traditions, you remember this is all coming from a common source. The names of the Greco, there's a whole article that looks at I didn't realize how extensive it was. I just thought, okay, Zeus is Jupiter, is Zeus, is Diauspater in Sanskrit. So Diauspater becomes Jupiter in Latin, which is Zeus in Greek. So some of them are well known, but I didn't realize how extensive the names of the celestials were. If you start looking in ancient Slavic, the oldest Slavic traditions, and there's got to be like this article by someone called Nick Kazantzas, who was an Indo-European linguist, looking at the common etymologies of the names of the devas. It was extensive. He's identified, I don't even know, well over 20-30. So there was a common Indo-European culture involving fire sacrifice. Now, from an Indian point of view, the Western traditions became overwhelmed by Tamas. They would say the Brahmanas, they lost their Brahminical culture, and the Vedic ritual, the old rituals were brought into, Greece and Italy, but they became Tamasic and killing animals and looking at entrails, and the whole thing became Tamasified because of being severed from the Brahminical culture. But nonetheless, it's all part of it once upon a time, and it's really quite fascinating. I did my PhD dissertation on this. But once upon a time, there was a unified, not just Indo-European language, but culture, my friends. And originally they thought Sanskrit was that original culture. And then they realized that Sanskrit is actually it's the oldest, but it isn't the original because it has made linguistic changes. So therefore it's not the original as they might have thought in the 18th century when they first discovered the connections. But there was this culture, and basically European culture, other than Hungarian and Finnish and Ugric and a few pockets of pre-Indo-European. It still survive in Europe, but it's quite fascinating. And this culture revolved around ritualism of offering things into the fire to celestials, and the same idea that the celestials used to participate with humans, even in the Greco-Roman traditions. And in India, in previous ages, the celestials are sitting right there. And the Kali Yuga, they stopped coming down because the rituals became, no one's really performing real rituals anymore, and so the whole thing breaks down in the Kali Yuga. But it's quite interesting that this idea that now this is just at the turn of the yugas, right? Because when Krishna goes back to his realm, that's the beginning of Kali Yuga. So this is probably 30 years, right? So there's still a spillover. So there's still this interaction. So the hosts of celestial beings in the heavens joyfully praised him. And they shower flowers on earth like confetti at a marriage, and played kettle drums continuously. And we'll read the stories of Krishna. I think every so often we should take a break and read and spend a session reading Krishna stories, and then we come back. Because we have to remember, where does the Bhagavatam want to take us? In its 18,000 verses, it wants to take us to a place of understanding who Krishna is. So all of this is just preparatory. This is just yogic stuff. How do yogis think? Sort of thing. Okay, so now the great sages who had assembled there also praised him with joyful hearts. Well done. And the word for that is sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So next time somebody does something good, like in Sanskrit class, remember, we'll go sadhu, sadhu. And you can shower flowers. I'm sure Eleanor knows how to shower flowers on the screen. So we can shower flowers. Oops. So let's just go back to this. So the great sages who assembled there also praised him with joyful hearts. Sadhu, sadhu. Their nature is to bestow blessings on living beings. If they're really sages, they're humble. And even when they meet someone who's a nasty, mean person, they understand, look, it's just the gunas. Even this mean, nasty, the sages are always compassionate and generous in bestowing their blessings. Because they see, look, it's just the play of the gunas. The Atman is always the Atman, just being tossed around in the ocean of the gunas because of misuse of free wills, right? So they spoke to him about the pleasing qualities of Lord Vishnu. This is what bhaktas talk about. They don't talk about the weather, whose glories are supreme. Oh, best of sage kings. Okay, this is the whole Bhagavatam is being recited. Okay, let's get back to that in a minute. Finish that sentence in a minute. Oh, best of sage kings, from among those who are devoted to Krishna, the bhaktas, there's nothing surprising about the fact that the ones who desire to become personal associates of Bhagavan, in other words, what is liberation for bhaktas? We know what liberation is for jnanis. We know what liberation is for Patanjali, Svarupa Vastanam, called aka Nirbija, aka Asampragnata. What is it actually? Svarupa Avastanam. It's an experience of pure consciousness. Infinite, eternal. Vedanta's going to say Satchidananda. They throw Ananda into the mix. But what's the liberation for bhaktas? They don't want that. They don't want moksha. Why do they want moksha? Because when you're in a state of moksha, of nirbija samadhi, of Svarupa Vastanam, you're not aware of anything. You're not aware of God. You're absorbed in your own pure consciousness. There's no relationship with God in jnana, in Patanjalian and jnana liberation. The goal is the Atman. And bhaktas accept that, but they don't want nothing to do with it. But it's hell. It says in the Bhagavatam it's hell, because hell is being separated from your beloved. So they want to go to the realms of Vishnu, these infinite realms in Brahman. They're called Saguna Brahman. They're realms made of pure consciousness, no matter there, no time, no gunas. But they're realms. This world is a reflection of that. How come we have name and form here? And we want to say that the cause is nameless and formless and qualityless? That doesn't make sense even from a cause-effect point of view. Whatever's in the effect must be in the cause. Otherwise, where did it come from? So if there's name and form and quality in the effect, then the cause must have name and form and quality. This is the logic of Vaiṣṇava Vedanta. They reject Shankara and Advaita Vedanta robustly. So what is that liberation then? You take a form made of pure consciousness and you spend all eternity with whatever form of Bhagavan that you're in love with. And you just, I'm a Krishna Bhakta, so I want to steal butter and play with the monkeys in the divine realm. That's my thing. I'm not a Radha Krishna Bhakta. My lineage is actually Radha Krishna lineage. I have no interest in Radha Krishna. I'm a Gopala Bhakta. I want little Gopala. So, so whatever form you're interested, it captured you. You take a form of pure consciousness appropriate to that type of love. That maximize, like we take forms now because of our karma, appropriate to our karma. That's the forms we get in this world of Prakriti. Our forms are expressions of our karma, appropriate for that karma to be burnt up and new karma to be formed. So on a parallel but diametrically opposite sort of way, if you're a bhakta, there's infinite ways of loving God. So according to whatever modality it steals your heart, you take a form appropriate to that. Just like in this realm, we take a form appropriate to karma. In that realm, we take a form appropriate to our love. It's called bhav, to our bhav. And that's the realm of Vaikuntha for the Vishnu devotees, Goloka for the Krishna devotees. And if you love Ma, you take a form appropriately. Mommy, just be careful of Kali. Well, I think up there, Kali, she probably in her divine realm, she probably puts her weapons down, right? It's only when she comes into the world of samsara, she's 16 arms, she goes to the armory, pulls out all of their axes. But probably up there in the divine realm of Ma, it's a different situation. Whatever the form you steals your heart. Why do we think that the absolute is formless and nameless? What a boring kind of liberation is that? Bhaktas want nothing to do with that. They want action and love, but all in pure consciousness. No matter, no time, eternal. So that's what this is referring to, right? There's nothing surprising about the fact that the ones who desire, they don't want moksha, Satchidananda, infinite eternal bliss. That's self-centered. By definition, Svarupa means self-centered. Verse number 3 of Patanjali, Svarupa, self-centered. They don't want that. They want God-centered. So there's nothing surprising about the facts of the ones who desire. What do they want? They want to be personal associates of Bhagavan. They want to associate personally in some form or fashion. Whatever you want. But it has to be 100%. You have to give up, like any yoga, 100% free of desire. Patanjali, you got 99% free, you die, come back, 1% to work on. So that's a sine qua non of any yoga, that you have to be vairagya, 100%, tatparam gunavaitrishnam, 100%. So bhakti is no different in that way, in terms of the basic fundamental requirements. It's just bhaktas want Bhagavan, they don't want just their Atman. So, there's nothing surprising about the fact that ones they desire to become personal associated, but where does that take place? This personal association in these realms made of condensed consciousness, Saguna Brahman, Vishnu realms are called Vaikunta, and Krishna divine realm is called Goloka. They renounce the royal throne. There were nothing to remember. Patanjali, Vairagya, 2 verses of Vairagya, right? How do you chittavriti nirodha, right? Abhyasa Vairagya, right? Abhyasa tatrastito yatna, right? What is abhyasa? You have to, make an effort to fix your mind. Dirghakala, nirantanya, right? You have to do it for a long time. Fine. What is Vairagya? There's 2 verses. The first is Vashikara Samjna, right? Your controlled mind, and you become disinterested from anything. But then it goes tatparam, higher than that. Gunavaitrishnam. Read it. Disinterested in the gunas. That means, what is the gunas? Everything that we know is gunas. Everything. The expanding universe. Even if they discover multiverses and rebound, whatever physics comes up with, it's all gunas. And the highest rate renunciation is you disinterest in the gunas. That's all yoga requires, that high level of vairagya, and bhakti included. It's not a joke, my friends. We'll see you next lifetime, because I'm coming back. We'll have to be like Parikshit and pray for the association of devotees, and we pray and say, oh, let the online Bhagavata Svadhyaya, may we still have internet in my next life. May my internet work. May we read the words of the Bhagavatam. Okay, I'll shut up. Right now. So, that's Vaikunta. Here it is. Okay, we skipped a verse. Okay, they renounce. Right. So now we will all remain here, say the sages, until this foremost of Bhagavan's devotees, right, Parikshit, he's the foremost, relinquishes his mature body. They're going to hold him company. They're going to be his company, and they're going to help him fix his mind on Bhagavan by, as we will find out, the words of the Bhagavatam. It took them 7 days and reciting, and Parikshit didn't sleep, and he fasted, and so his mind was fully fixed on the words of the Bhagavatam when he left his body. So that's I'm sort of giving you I'm giving you a preview of where it's going. So until the foremost of Bhagavan's devotees relinquishes his mature body and departs to the supreme realm, Vaikunta, there it is. Vaikunta, which means Vaikunta, free from sorrow and hankering. There's no raga dvesha, because there's no avidya, there's no asmita, there's no gunas, there's no prakriti. Everything is pure consciousness, and Bhagavan delights with his devotees in infinite realms, in infinite modalities, in infinite forms, as must be the case for God. Isn't God supposed to be infinite? So therefore, infinite forms, it's logical that if you're an infinite Godhead, you'll manifest infinite forms so you can have personal relationships with your infinite devotees. It's not that everyone's standing in a line waiting for their ticket number and there's one Vishnu sitting on a throne and your number 5,600,000,000,000, and you go, oh my God, I hope I brought my tea with me, right? In a bloody great long line. It's not like that. Everybody has their own form. So that's how it works. So when Krishna dances with the gopis, haven't you seen the pictures when you go to eat your dosa in the Indian restaurant, and they got a picture on the wall of Krishna, and there's a Krishna, and then there's a gopi, and there's a Krishna, and there's a gopi, and there's a Krishna. What's all that about? Each gopi has their own Krishna. So this is God. Go in the Indian restaurant. Next time you have a dosa, it has to be vegetarian, because it probably, vegetarian dosa restaurant. Have a look on the wall. See, chances are there'll be a picture of Krishna and the gopis. If they don't have one, say, hey, where's Krishna and the gopis? And then they'll say, okay, next time. But you've all seen those pictures. It's like a round circle, and there's Krishna, gopi. What's that? But what is that? What's that conveying? It's conveying that you have your own personal relationship with God in this realm of infinity, pure conscious personalism. If you will go for jnana, it's impersonal. It's just Satchidananda. It's just like omnipresent, right? Ananta. Satchidananda is actually not that phrase, Satchidananda. You don't find that in the Upanishads. So what you find is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Satchidananda is a later phrase that comes out of probably Advaita Vedanta, but it says it's infinite consciousness, but it's impersonal. So if that's what you want, then follow the path of jnana. But if you want personal relationship with the personal Bhagavan, then what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, it looks like these infinite realms with infinite forms of Bhagavan, and everything's pure consciousness, and you get the form, like in this realm, I'm repeating myself, you get the form appropriate to your karma. In that realm, you get the form appropriate to your bhav, your love, the modality of your love. That's Vaishnavism. Guruji Iyengar, in case any of you are Iyengar yogis, he didn't really give you much of that, but it was there. I asked him personally. I said, Maharaj, are you still a Sri Vaishnava at the end of his life? He said, yes. Okay, now then. Those assembled sages were fixed in yoga. Now, this means that they'd attained their Atman. Whenever you have yoga without bhakti, it means that you can be a bhakta, but you still experience Svarupa Vastanam. It's just you don't stop there. You don't just enter that. You don't enter that possibility. You resist entering to that possibility because you want love. You don't want to you don't want an experience, even if it's bliss, ananda, like the Advaitins say. You don't want it. You want love, prema. It's 1,000 times for a bhakta. It's 1,000 times more meaningful. More, it's a much the bliss is desirable. So, all right, they fixed in yoga. Their words were impartial. Right? No judgment, they see all beings equally. If you're partial, then it means we're not seeing equally. We favor this one and disfavor that one. Impartiality is automatic when you see this samatvam yoga muchyate. The definition of yoga in the Gita is impartiality. Samatvam is the word. That's the definition of yoga. It's not Chittavritti Nirodha in the Gita. Yoga, specifically, samatvam yoga muchyate. Yoga is said to be samatvam. Samaha, exactly the same word as same, sameness, seeing everything the same. So the sages are on that level. Profound, their words are profound, right? They don't chit-chat about nonsense. And true, sat. After listening to them, Parikshit, desiring to hear about the deeds of Vishnu, he wants to go just beyond yoga and all of that. He wants to know about Vishnu. He offered the sages his respect and he addressed them. to the sages, "You have all assembled here from all the corners of the world. Just as the Vedas, which are beyond the three worlds, manifest divine bodily forms." Okay, so the Vedas are considered eternal, and in Indian tradition, there's personality behind everything. So that's why the Ganga is a river, she's also a goddess. Sarasvati is learning, she's a goddess. So the four Vedas are books, but they're also divine beings. So the sun is the sun, but it's also Vivishwan, a celestial. So everything, especially powerful and eternal things, are actually the physical form of a celestial being. So that's why, outside temples, you have the deity of Ganga and Sarasvati carved on the outside to represent, the bringing of the rivers to the temple. So therefore, the Vedas have these divine forms. So that's what it's saying. That's what it's saying. So just as the Vedas, which are beyond the three worlds, right? They're not, as Marx would say, a construct of the human intelligence. They're not made up for some moral or other purpose, right? Ideological purpose. They're beyond the three worlds. That means they're eternal. They manifest in different periods. They may be manifest, they may be unmanifest, like karma yoga. Remember in the Gita, Krishna says, well, I gave in the beginning and it got lost. So sometimes knowledge systems can get lost, things can get lost. And we will mute everybody before somebody says something embarrassing. Participants, mute all. All right. So Vedas, then so all of these, everything that's written in these texts can be unpacked and help us understand the world of ancient India that much better. So the Vedas are beyond the three worlds, and they manifest divine bodily form. They're divine forms, celestial forms. Now, one whose nature is to bestow grace on others, the great sages, has no other purpose whatsoever, either in this world or the next, other than to do this and bestow grace. If you realize your Atman, if you're a Gyani, and you've developed you've been bestowed love of God, if you're a Bhakti, there's nothing in the world that interests you. That's even Patanjali says Tatvaram, the Param Vairagya. So why do you stay in the world? Just to help others, to grace others. That's, by the way, the Jivan Mukta and the Bodhisattva of Buddhism. Beautiful concept in Buddhism of the Bodhisattva who actually could enter into an eternal nirvanic state, but refrains from doing so in order to reach out to others. And in the Indian equivalent to that is the Jivan, alive, Mukta, but liberated. Right, Alice? What's Mukta? I'm picking on Alice because she's up there. What's Mukta? Much is the root. Mukta is? It's the same thing, PPP. Mukta. So you know what Mukta is cognate with, by the way? I've told you this before, haven't I? Do you remember what the word mukti and mukta is cognate with in English? Mucus. If you think about it, sometimes the cognates are, it takes you a second or two to see the connection, but mucus is a freeing up of stuff. It's freeing of the fluids from your body. So it's connected with this idea of freeing. So sometimes over 5,000 years, or however long it was since the language is split, obviously, semantics takes different directions. So liberation in mukti is the liberation of fluids, in English mucus. You can see the connection once it's been pointed out to you. Now then, I never know who I said what to, or anyway, so it's all good. Okay, here it is. Now, pay attention, my friends. These questions, the entire Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses, is a response to these questions. Okay? If you're on Rutgers, they'll be on your midterm quiz. We give you a midterm quiz. What do you think? Midterm, Talissa, should we have a midterm exam? Diana, you want to have a midterm quiz? No? An honor system. And this is going to be on it. What questions There's going to be a bunch of questions now, and then a little bit later that grant another question. Put them together. You might want to write them down, because these questions are actually the questions we should be asking. Parikshit's our mouthpiece. So what is this question? Therefore, with full faith in you, O learned ones, I submit to you this most worthy query. From all those duties that are to be performed by everybody, we all have our dharmas. You've got mother dharma, sister dharma, brother dharma, professional dharma, student dharma, teacher dharma, pet dharma, all those dharmas. From all those, and he had king dharma, he had to run the kingdom. From all those dharmas, right, that are to be formed, let's focus now. Which is the optimum dharma that should be performed specifically by those about to die? What's the dharma then? Because all this other stuff clearly is not helpful. You have to give up all these other dharmas. You're going to die. So you're not going to feed your pet 7 days. You tell your husband to do it or whatever. These dharmas become irrelevant. What is the dharma of one about to die? Think of the way he's framed that question. Why does he frame it like that? Because he's the king. He doesn't know yogi language. And what's the king? Since the king was born, it's been drummed into his head. Dharma, dharma, dharma. You, one day, my son, you will grow up and you will rule the kingdom, and you will rule, and you will make sure that everyone's following their dharma, 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 dharma. It's pounding into you from the minute you can understand language if you're a king. Dharma, dharma. So he's framing it in the language he knows. What's the dharma? And the Gita doesn't put it that way. It says, what do you do with the mind at the moment of death? It does, So it's very interesting. So what's the dharma of one about to die? What is the optimum duty that should be performed specifically by those about to die? What do I do? Please give this your full consideration. Now, that's his first question, and he's gonna. Then we take a little detour. At that moment, by chance, the son of Vyasa is the great author of the Mahabharata. He took the one Purana, divided into 12. He compiled the eternal Veda. So he's kind of like this grand. He's actually a partial incarnation of Vishnu, because he really organized. Basically, he organized. Here's how I think of it. He organized transition from the knowledge of the previous yuga, where people could just memorize everything. He didn't have literature. He didn't have writing, by the way. Writing is considered to be a sign of Kali Yuga, and a sign of the memory becoming weak, that you can't remember anymore, so you need a prop. So writing that we think of as a big step forward in civilization, they think of it as a big step backwards. So Vyasa is basically the one that, given that the age of Kali is arriving, and he sees the symptoms, loss of memory, cheating, propensity to cheat, dishonesty, and he, in order to preserve the sacred knowledge, which previously was oral, he preserved it all in writing. So he took the one Veda, divided it into 4, and some of his disciples are mentioned, or Maharshana. So he must have had a school. If we, I don't see why he couldn't have been a historical person. Remember, I'm in the tradition right now for 2 hours. I'm putting on the hat of the tradition. So we don't say, occasionally we bring in Marx or something just as a point of interest, but our svadhyaya is going to be conducted within the parameters of traditional way of thinking. And I was very fortunate, because I spent 5 years in India before I went to academe. So I already had my samskaras in place, my traditional ones. And then I went to academe, which of course mess up. Remember the book that was called, the book that was How I Lost God at Harvard Divinity School. This guy went to Harvard Divinity School, and he wrote a book, How I Lost God at the Harvard Divinity School. So fortunately, I did it the other way around and went to India first, thank God. But nonetheless, so we're going to do this traditionally now. So the great Shuka, he's the one that's reciting the whole Bhagavatam, actually. He happened to arrive there. He was wandering around the earth in the guise of an ascetic renunciate. Notice that, guise. He's walking around in loincloth and dreadlocks, but he's walking around the earth. He doesn't need to sit in a cave and meditate on Bhagavan. But he's walking around to give everyone a chance, anyone he meets, a chance to come up, even just some respectful words, Maharaj, a glass of water, and then he can impart grace. He can give some knowledge. He can plant. All you need is 1 minute with a being like that. 1 minute puts that sanskara in your head. That's all you need. When you read these stories of the gurus in the Puranas, they're not sitting around with their disciples groveling about their feet. Oh, Maharaj, Maharaj, all of it. No, they come for 1 minute. The encounters between the guru and the disciple in the Bhāgavata Purāṇa, they last a minute. Narada typically comes down, gives knowledge, gives the mantra, that's it. But that presence, that samskara is so powerful when it comes out of the mind and the mouth of a pure lover of God. When he gives that mantra or he gives that instruction, it's so powerful that it totally penetrates the heart. And you could have read the same thing 1,000,000 times and just read it and read it and read it. But when you hear that same thing once, it upends your whole life. But typically, the encounters between the guru and disciple, they last a minute. I mean, there's some exceptions, but mostly they're not. You go for instruction. Guruji, just tell me what to do. Even Arjuna in the Krishna says, tell me what to do. Shishastvam ham shadimam, imperative. Shadimam tvam prapanam. Just tell me what to do. I'm at the point now, I'm ready to receive instruction, and then you get it. Bang. But it doesn't have to be like groveling about, oh, Guruji, I've had enough of that already. So he's wandering around in the guise of an ascetic renunciate, completely unattached to anything, as he was satisfied by the realization of his Atman, because he's also got his mind fixed on Bhagavan, surrounded by young boys, because kids somehow or other, the way this is framed, they're a little bit more innocent, they're not socialized, and they recognize great beings perhaps in a less complicated way than those embedded in society that are attached to this, that, and the other. So for some reason, it says this is surrounded by young boys, probably because it's easier for a child who's less socialized, less conditioned, to recognize an extremely unusual being wandering around. His elevated characteristics lay concealed. It's called Brahma Tejas, the power of his Brahman. He was 16 years of age, with handsome and youthful feet, hands, thighs, arms, shoulders, cheeks, and body. He was very handsome. There's a reason for the text to say this. It's a yoga text. It shouldn't be just normally yoga texts don't describe bodies as being beautiful. There's a reason for this, so hang in there. How many times have you read a yoga text? They talk about the dreadlocks. They don't talk about the beauty of the body. That's not a jnana thing to do. If you're not the body, why on earth would you go on about the beauty of the body? It's just flesh. It's just, as my guru would say, tatti. Ye to tatti hai. That's it. You hear that once. You read it for 100 times. You hear it from someone like that. Ye to tatti hai. This is theses. Bang. It just is. It gets you right in the heart. It just really completely. That samskara is not like other samskara. So anyway, but there's a reason why. Okay, this is beauty, by the way. Pay attention if you're interested in what is the aesthetics of beauty in Indian literature, because this is very standardized. What beauty? How you define beauty? In Indian tradition, right? So here are some of the symptoms of beauty. Right, wide eyes, stately nose, fine. Symmetrical. Now, symmetry is a sign of beauty in Western traditions as well as Eastern traditions. So if a face is very symmetrical, your ears, like, all of us have got, maybe your mouth goes up like this, or one ear then that isn't considered to be beauty. So look at your face in the mirror and see all the wonky bits of your face. But if everything is perfectly symmetrical, it's a sign of beauty. In fact, if you look at some of these models, that do some of these models in like Paris and stuff, if you look at their faces, they actually are very symmetrical. They may not be attractive, but there's a beauty. Beauty doesn't necessarily mean you're attracted to it. It's just an aesthetic perfection, and symmetry is one of the characteristics of that. So symmetrical ears, attractive eyebrows. His fine neck was a conch shell. And if you look at Indian art, you'll often see 3 lines here. The conch shell. So I don't know why, but that's considered to be a sign of beauty, to have 3 conch shell-like lines on your neck, on your throat. Everybody's looking in the mirror. I saw that. Amira, I saw you looking in the mirror. Hello, hang on, do I have 3 lines? Yeah, you go, get away from me. I saw that right now. So, okay. And his collarbones concealed. He had a broad, attractive chest. His navel was like a whirlpool. His stomach had beautiful lines. He was naked, right? Because if you're absorbed in the Atman, I mean, why do people wear clothes? Either because it's cold, or because you're trapped in a bodily sense of gender and raga that associated with the gender differences. But if you don't identify with gender because you don't identify with your body, why would you wear clothes? You wouldn't wear clothes. Or you might just out of respect for cultural norms. And there are sects of naked Nanga Babas. There's Jain Nanga Babas, there's Shaiva Nanga Babas, so it's still a tradition of nakedness. Right, now. Okay. His arms were long, and this is really weird, because beauty, your arms are supposed to reach your knees. And that's a bit weird. If you stand up and see how far your arms go down, okay? Amira, can you stand up, please? Come on, up you get. Okay, Eleanor, right now, how far do your arms go? How much above your knees? A good 6 inches, right?
Mid-thighs, and I have short arms.
If you saw someone with arms that go to their knees, it would I don't know if it would look freaky. I would imagine it would look freaky, but that's a sign of beauty. Take it or leave it.
Only if you have long legs.
If for us, it's long legs, but for them, it was long arms. I believe Guruji Iyengar had very long arms. One of his disciples told me, so it could be something, whatever. So, now, okay, he was naked, his hair was scattered around his face, his arms were long, he was as attractive as the best of the celestials. Dark complexioned and displayed an attractive, youthful appearance. He was captivating to women because of his charming smile. Innocent, no sexual, not projecting any sexual predatory interest. So there's no threat. Can I tell you a story now? Though his luster was covered over, he was covered over. He's living in the forest, probably covered with dirt. And so they rode, but everybody recognized his excellence. But I just want to tell you a story, but it's not here in the Bhagavatam. I think you've heard it before, because I've said it before. But why is his beauty described? And I'll give you a story from another source. Before he reaches the assembly, he's walking. And he passes the river, and, in India, there are sections of the river that the girls, the ladies, like we have gents and ladies restrooms, right? You don't go, a bloke doesn't go into the ladies. It's just a standard cultural understanding. So there were sections of the river that the ladies went to, and the blokes wouldn't go there, and sections with the men, right? So he doesn't know this. He's wandering about, and he walks along by the river, and this is why it describes how gorgeous he is. And there are these young girls, beautiful young girls, naked in the river, taking bath. And he's gorgeous. So, 16. I mean, you know what you were like when you were a teenager at 16. I don't know about you, but anybody coming out of the counterculture, right? That's a recipe for disaster, right? 16-year-olds naked in the river and this beautiful man. And he walks past. And the girls just, wave, and he keeps wandering on. And then Vyas, his father, comes running along after him because his son has left home. And he's supposed to be the great Vyas. He's still attached to his son. It's beautiful. And he goes, Shuka, Shuka, Shuka. And it says, only the leaves echoed the name back. Anyway, he runs along. He sees this. And he gets to the river and all the girls scuttle out, grab their clothes, cover themselves up. And he looks at them, he says, what do you do that for? I'm Vyas. I'm the great yogi. And he's old. I could be your grandfather. Why did you, when my son, gorgeous, beautiful, that's why they described him that way, because they want to make this point. Why did you waved at him and me, and I'm an ugly old man? And they said, because you saw us as females. So we reacted as females. Your son did not see us as gendered beings. He saw us at Atman. We had no reason to respond in a gendered way. What a beautiful story, isn't it? So then along he comes, and now he's after that story, and he gets to the assemblage. Thereupon, Parikshit, beloved of Vishnu, right, he's a bhakta of Vishnu, offered respect by bowing his head to Shuka, who had arrived as an unexpected guest. At this, all the simple folk, women and children who were following departed, right? They were, he was a pure being, and anybody want to walk with him? So all the simple, they recognized him. But the minute they saw all these Brahmins and big sages, they're in the company of a lot of ego there as well. I mean, they might have been great beings, but there'd been a lot of ego there, with great gurus with their disciples and all of this. So immediately they felt their caste, they felt their social status and ran away. But they didn't to a real great being. There would be no need for them to. It's the same thing. They reacted in a caste way when they found themselves in a caste-related context. Same as the girls reacted in a gendered way when there was need to respond to a gendered perception of them from the old man Vyas. So they all scuttled away because now, honored in this way, Shuka sat on an elevator. So they gave him an elevated seat. It's called an asana. Surrounded by Brahmana sages, kingly sages, celestial sages, the divine Shuka, a great soul among great souls, shone forth in that place like the moon, surrounded by the multitude of planets, constellations, and stars. Shuka was acutely intelligent, by the way. Just because someone is very simple and humble and almost naive, don't underestimate the power of the intellect. It's just it's not being used in the normal ways. We think of intellectuality as lofty words and philosophy and eloquence. Not necessarily. A great simple Shuka was acutely intelligent. The king, devotee of Vishnu, he keeps repeating that, approached the sage, who was sitting peacefully. Parikshit bowed his head to him, attentively offered him respects with joined hands, then inquired from him with joyful words. Parikshit said, right now, we want to finish, right, he asked one question so far. Now he's going to extend the one question, okay? What was the one question? Don't peek, no cheating. What question did he, before Shuka came, the other sages were all there. What was Parikshit's question? What is the? Karma of one about to die. That was his parting question. Now he's going to ask some other questions to Shuka. Okay, let's see what the questions are. These are questions we should be asking, my friend. This is a role model for us. Take this seriously. It's not a story. It's a spiritual wisdom being transmitted down the ages in the form of these beautiful. Are they true stories, or are they just sort of narrative devices to transmit messages? Well, that's up to you. I take them as true stories. But if that's too much, okay, fine. Then take them as vehicles to impart bhakti. It doesn't matter whether you take them to be historically true or not. I take them to be historically true. That's just me. But you're not obliged to. If it conflicts with your notion of archaeology and historical linguistics and, human time frames, and your rational mind just can't accept them as historically true, well, then don't then. Accept them as vehicles of imparting information, in this case bhakti. It's not essential to consider them to be historically true. They never, by the way, nowhere in any Purana, 400,000 verses, the 18 Puranas, Mahabharata, 100,000 verses, that's 500,000 right there, with all the commentaries, millions and billions and billions. Nowhere does it say, oh, these stories are metaphoric. They're allegories. They're really just vehicles. Never does it say that. So if you make up your own mind how you want to read them, but just know that the tradition has always taken them to be historical. That's what Purana is. Pura. It took place before. Pura is cognate with the English word for. Pura, pa, fa, right? It's a labial. A pa you do with your lips. A fa you do with your lips. Pur, for, before. That's the very meaning of the word Purana. And the word for the epic, the two epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, is itihasa. Thus it was. Thus it took place. So the very names of the texts claim that they're history. But if your rational mind can't deal with it, and you're really thinking about, well, what about the Indus Valley, and what about archaeology, and if it conflicts too much with our modern methods of reconstructing history, then they're fine. When you read the stories, put on your bhakta hat. And when you talk to academics, and put on your academic hat. You can play around like that. If you're an academic bhakta, you have to. Otherwise, they laugh at you. You say, "Oh yes, when Rama, 2 million years ago, when the Ramayana." you think you get an invitation to an academic conference? I don't think so, my friends. Okay, now, so what are these questions? Right. Okay, he was acutely intelligent. Now what? Okay, he approaches Shuka. Parikshit said, "Aho, there's your land, ahoy! Aho, by your lordship arriving here. First of all, you have to say some nice things. You have to honor the great beings. So you do, you honor sincerely, not formulaically, but sincerely. You honor the great beings. Now, by your lordship arriving here unexpectedly out of kindness, we, who are mere kshatriyas, right, what members of the warrior caste, have today become worthy of being served by saints. In other words, just by being near you, we've now become elevated because you're going to speak to me. So I'm now worthy of receiving your words, but my worthiness is coming from you, not from me. O Brahmana, we have been transformed into pilgrimage places by your presence. We now have become pure pilgrimage places, but because you're in our vicinity, not because of us. By simply remembering such persons as yourself, our houses become purified, because after all, purity is in the mind. And if you put the great being in your mind becomes pure. Wherever there is God or the great being, there is purity, definitionally. It's a definition. So what then to speak about seeing and touching you, washing your feet, offering you a seat, and so forth. What great fortune I'm having today. From being in your presence, O great yogi, even the greatest of sins are immediately destroyed, just by the power of the purity of these great beings. They burn our karma, just right there. Most of these traditions take a view that when you take Diksha into a traditional lineage, the moment of Diksha, all your karma is destroyed. You only have to burn up whatever has been activated in this life. Now, take it or leave it. That's what the traditions say, and that's my job to tell you that. Right, now. So, Bhagavan Krishna, verse 35, who is dear to the sons of Pandu. Right? Remember the Mahabharata war, Pandavas against the Kurus, 5 Pandavas, and Krishna is the uncle of the Pandavas, because his sister is sister is Kunti, who is the mother of the Pandavas. Is it his sister? Yeah, it's his sister, so he's the uncle. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody. And so he goes, and he says, it must be the grace of Krishna. Look, Bhagavan Krishna was dear. How is it that I'm meeting you, Shuka? What qualification do I have that I can meet a sage, a great saint like you. It's not like we all get the chance to meet a great being. So he's thinking, well, how the hell did I earn it? And then he goes, Bhagavan Krishna, who is dear to the sons of Pandu, is surely pleased with me. And why is he pleased with me? Not because I'm worthy, so as to please his paternal aunt's sons. He's pleased with me because I'm the son of Arjuna, and he wants to please Arjuna. I'm unworthy, but because he wants to please his cousin Arjuna, and I'm the son of Arjuna, the grandson of Arjuna, then even though I'm unworthy, he's doing this as an act of grace for his cousin, for Arjuna. That's the thinking of a bhakta. You never think you're qualified. You never think you're worthy. And you never go around bragging about your devotion. You keep it to yourself in your heart. But otherwise it becomes a display. Don't talk about your devotion other than to your real confidants that you can share with. You don't go around saying, oh, my heart is stolen by Krishna. Shut up. It's a personal thing. Because otherwise you slide into a place of asmita, ego. And presenting yourself in a certain way. Look, I'm a great bhakta. Oh, I'm always, Beware. The pitfalls are everywhere of asmita. So, moving on. Now we get to the question. So the only reason I met you is because Krishna wants to please my grandfather, Arjuna. So he has accepted the descendants of the lineage, and because I'm a descendant of the lineage, then I'm just fortunate to be born in the lineage. But really, I'm not worthy. It's to please Arjuna. Otherwise, how is it possible for me to be blessed by seeing you? Who am I that I get a chance to meet a being like you? You are perfect and compassionate, but your ways are concealed to humankind. The great beings don't go around displaying, projecting their advancement. Anyone that does that, my friends, red light. You go around projecting yourself as a great being, or you allow your disciples to go running around. Oh, our guru is this, that, and the other. Red light. Not okay. Asmita. How many times do we need to get ripped off before we get the message? Bhakti is in the heart, my friends. Not out there, not in the high street, putting on a big show. Now then. Okay, so you're perfectly compassionate, but your ways are concealed to humankind. Keep that in mind. Keep your devotion and your yogic to yourself. Other than, as I said, real, true, time-tested confidants, and you'll be lucky to have more. You'll be lucky to have 3 in this world. And for myself, 45 years on this path, I'll be I could let not even on the hands on the fingers of one hand could I think of actual confidants that I really share my struggles, my fall downs, my this, my that, and occasional moments of revelation and bliss that you can share without ego creeping into the exchange. So keep that in mind. Don't, Sangha, okay, fine, you can do kirtan, big room, blah, 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 everybody's chanting. But your heart friends, you'd be lucky to have 3 or 4. Meaning spiritual friends. Right now. Therefore, now the questions. You're compassionate, especially to those who are about to die. Therefore, I ask of you, right, Eleonora, can you count these questions? We've had 1 so far, right? What is the dharma of one about to die? Let's add them up. I ask of you, the most eminent of gurus among yogis. Number 1, what is the means to perfection? Number 2, what should be done at every moment by a person in this world about to die? That's us, my friends. We never got 7-day warning. What's to be done at every moment? Right. What should be heard? What's that? Number 3. What mantra should be chanted? Look, japyam, right? Sanskritist, japyam, that's a tadit, ya suffix on jap, ya krit suffix. I don't want to keep picking on Alice. Who else is doing Sanskrit here? I can pick on someone else. What have we got up there? Who is a Sanskritist? Eric? No, he's not. Maybe he does it. Do you unload them? Do you get the? All right. We don't have much time. But ya is, you put ya onto a verbal root, a Sanskrit verbal root, and it makes it into a noun. So it's called a krit suffix. And so,
By the way, it's 1 hour from the last hour.
yeah, I
and
know. I'm
it's
just going to finish it.
6:08.
I just want to finish the list of questions, and that's it. Give me 5 more minutes. I'll stop waffling. Right now, what are the questions? Right. Number 1, what is the means to perfection? Number 2, what should be done at every moment by a person in the world about to die? Number 3, what should be heard? Number 4, what mantras should be chanted? Japyam. Number 5, what actions should be performed by men, O Master? Number 6, what should be remembered? What do you keep in your mind? What samskaras do you cultivate in your mind by will? And what should be worshipped? And also, please tell me what should be avoided. Okay? These are the questions. Indeed, and the last verse for today. Indeed, O Brahmana, it is known that your honor never lingers in the homes of those attached to households for more than even the brief time taken to milk a cow. I told you about this. You go to ask for milk if you're a great being, but you don't really want the milk. You're giving them an opportunity. If they're attached to their households, they give you some milk just because for piety. They want to get some good karma, give him some milk. Chilo jawa, take the lelo maharaj, jaye. Go. Right? That's not that's that. Then that being goes. But someone who is a little deeper will see the opportunity. My God, this great being has come to my house. Come in, Maharaj. Come in, sit down. Tell me something about my soul. Tell me something about Bhagavan. Okay, but otherwise the great being does not linger. Not interested in opulent houses and all marble, this, that, and the other. Only interested in exchange of truth and devotion. Okay, my friends. So there we are, and we're over time. So I will take. Why don't we do 10 minutes of questions at the beginning of next class? Or I can take some questions. I don't mind. You, any questions? I don't mind staying a little bit. Otherwise, we'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Going, gone. Okay, my friends. I just you can log off. I'm just going to quickly check the chats in case there's anything I need to know about.
It's not the theory, it's the practice.
Yes. Thank you. Chats. Yes, forbidden archaeology. I don't know what you make of that. I have some comments to make. The stories are from the turn of the age. Florence Lentini. Paul. Yep. That's a book, but problem with forbidden archaeology, it's using.
Sorry, that was my question. I didn't know whether you were referring to the Kali Yuga age that these stories occurred in, or a previous age that were somehow.
The very, very beginning of Kali Yuga. Very beginning.
Oh, okay.
First 2 decades.
But we haven't found architectural evidence. I guess someone who showed the book.
Not
forbidden.
From
I mean, I'm unfamiliar with the history of the Hindu religions.
Sure. The text says 5,000 BCE, and 5,000 5,000 years ago. So that would be 2,000 BCE. That would be 3,000 BCE. 3,116 if you want to be precise. And all we have in India is the Indus Valley civilization. And if you want to try to connect that, you'd have a really hard time to try to connect that with the narrative of the Mahabharata. Not impossible, but so far that connection doesn't seem is not being made. I appreciate it.
I have one more question. Sorry, I just remember this.
Nona is telling us Kunti and Vasudeva siblings. Excellent. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, you mentioned the Indo-European and Hindu similar deities. There was an article that you mentioned?
Yeah. It's an academic art.
Could someone maybe share that with the group? I'd love to read it.
I mean, it's not something that is. I'd have to. I have it somewhere. Either in Princeton or in the UK.
Oh, okay.
I can give you the
Impossible.
name. I can give you. No, might be able to download it from his website. Nicholas. If you
Okay.
type in Nicholas Kazantzas, Indo-European. Somebody do it now. If you have a minute, would someone kindly type it? Or you can do it, Florence. Nicholas.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Kazantzas. And then put in Indo-European. And then if his web page comes up, I think he has his articles all on his web page.
I put it in the chat what I found on Amazon quickly.
Thank you, Eleonora. Any other questions, my friends? I'm just quickly finish up the chat here. Okay, I'm going to close out. If you want to take this link that Eleonora sent, grab it. Have you got it? Or can I close out?
I got it. Thank you.
Which Upanishad you had mentioned made a distinction between biological Brahmins and Brahman knowing Brahmins? I've never heard that, so I was just curious. My understanding was the Bhagavad Gita was the first distinction.
It's
to
right
say
there. It's
that.
right there in the Upanishads. I'm trying to think. I think it's probably the
On the last meeting, you said Chandogya or
Chandogya.
Hridayaranyaka.
Brihad. It's either the
Those are
Brihad
the
or
two
the
biggest
Chandogya.
ones.
Yeah, the biggest ones. I mean, we read it pretty, Satyakama. Okay, Satyakama is being sent by his father. No, his son comes back from Gurukula. He's all proud.
Chandogya.
Chandogya, he's proud. He's been away 12 years in Gurukula. He's learned all of it. And then the father, who's a yogi, it's the same thing. Father's a real yogi Brahmana, and the kid is a punk upstart, just like in this story. So that's a recurring motif. And then the father says, "There is no one in our family, my son, who is a Brahmin by birth." So go into the Satyakama. There's several Satyakama stories. Satyakama appears in several stories, and find the one where he comes back from Gurukula, and let us know next week. Who is that? Who's asking the question?
Lakshman. I'll do that.
Yeah, if you want to just find it, easily found. Just look in the back in the index, and find Satyakama, and there's going to be 4 or 5 stories, and just look at them until you find the one where he comes back from Gurukula, and it says all swell-headed. It says it.
Yeah.
All proud and and swell-headed.
Okay,
any
great.
other questions, my friends? What are we going to do now? Jai Shri Shri Radhe Shyam. Got to get you ready for Vrindavan. Florence, we're going to get
when is the trip?
We're going to get you ready. Now you got to go to Jai Shri Radhe.
Oh, I don't think I could travel to
All right.
India.
No,
But
no,
thank
Radhe.
you.
You can
It
still
sounds like fun, though.
we can still do Radhe Shyam. Have a great evening, everybody. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Edwin. Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Thank you.